Uju, and welcome to the Red Lake Nation College Gikendaasowin podcast. Join us each week for discussion on topics including culture and language, career exploration, RLNC student spotlights, student projects, and other RLNC services. Over the next few weeks, we'll be showcasing interviews related to food sovereignty that RLNC students in Dr. Wendy Greenberg's Spring 2022 Environmental Science course conducted with members from the Red Lake community. The purpose of this project was for students to gain more knowledge on different aspects related to foods, traditional foods, health and nutrition, and food sovereignty. This week, RLNC student Senora Beaulieu interviews Red Lake Comprehensive Health Services Administrative Officer Susan Ninham. Red Lake Nation College would like to thank the National Endowment for the Humanities for their generous support in the creation of this podcast. Miigwech.
So this is the interview for my food sovereignty assignment for environmental science. And I just have a couple questions about it. The first one would be, first of all, what is your name?
My name is Susan Ninham.
Okay, and so the first question would be, how would you explain food sovereignty to someone that does not know what it is?
Food sovereignty is an idea of how a group of people preserve the types of food that were traditionally in their diet, and how do they preserve that by learning how to, or first of all, learning to what the foods are, where they grow, or where they can hunt and gather them, and how to prepare them, and how do they store them, and then how do they use them in their daily diet. And they themselves learn how to make decisions about not only that part of it, how to gather it, how to get it, how to preserve it, how to store it, and how to use it, but also decisions on how to distribute that food for subsistence, whether it's for their family, their relatives, the clan, or the band. How are they going to distribute that based on the need and how much of the resource that they have available for the population.
Okay. So the next question is, what do you think are some problems with the current food system?
So the problems with our current food system started when the Europeans came to the North American continent. And so they've been ongoing ever since that for over 500 years. And initially, the tribal groups who was our original tribal group, our ancestors, they were located on the eastern shoreline of the North American continent in what is now the United States. And that started there when the newcomers, they started to attack the villages and take their food supply. And then once they learned how to, of course, they were taught by the tribes how to fish, hunt, gather, grow their own food. And then once that started, they then started to expand their knowledge on the food system and taking from the tribal people, and then the migration of our ancestors when they left the eastern border. The prophecy was for them to leave and follow the Migish Shell through down the St. Lawrence River and to the place where the food grows on water. And so that's how wild rice came to be. And that was one of the ways that our people have survived for these many generations. And when they came to Madeline Island was where they settled, and then they started to expand again from there to go to the different areas just to follow the food sources. But along the way, along the St. Lawrence River, they established several Anishinaabe villages along the St. Lawrence River. And when they came to the Great Lakes area, they then continued to, hunt and fish and gather. And by that time, they had different other products that were traded with the Europeans to help with the preservation of foods. And so that initial contact with the Europeans was a plus and a minus. They took food, and then they also provided some advanced technology and how to preserve food for longer periods of time and larger in larger quantities, so that the families wouldn't starve during the winter times. And so the change, there was another change that occurred when the federal government started to take land from the tribal, from the Anishinaabe, specifically taking lands and minimizing their hunting, fishing, and gathering areas. So therefore, again, the food source was limited to the small plots, which are the reservations today, that they were not able to do the mass hunting, gathering, and fishing like they did in the past. And that affected the food source. And then when they were put on the reservations through treaty, the US government agreed to provide health, education, and welfare. And underneath that welfare column was food. And that's when the commodities came to be, because the tribes were then outlawed from leaving the reservation to hunt for their food. And when the commodities came to be, they were minimal, they were poor quality. Well, in the beginning, they were enough food, they were of high quality, but what was happening was the federal officials who had the authority to distribute the food, they would take all the best products from that food and use it for their own families and distribute it within their people. And then whatever was left over would be given then and distributed to the native people. And there were times when and then another thing that happened was, in order to get the commodities in the beginning, they had to go to a certain agency, which could have been anywhere from 100 to 200 miles away from where their homes were, and to get that distribution. And there was a lot of difficulties in that. And so once the commodities came in, the communities then had to learn how to store, use, and figure out how do we use these new products to feed our families. And that's when they gave a lot of the foods that are unhealthy, the flour, the white flour, the lard, the canned meats, again, that were like the low quality meats that were provided. I think probably the one product that everyone absolutely loves is the commodity cheese. And they, beans, rice, those kinds of things. And then families who didn't adapt in the community, they relied heavily on the commodity foods. But our family, we continued to hunt and fish and gather, our foods for, many generations up until Grandpa Pete and Grandma Teresa. We don't do that anymore. I learned how to do all those things, but we don't do it. And so we haven't gone back to the hunting, fishing, and gathering as the food was traditionally available to us. We rely on store-bought products, but we're going back to, and we've always used, like the wild rice and the fish and the game when we can get it, we always use that, and we still do today. But it's definitely changed to where, well, even more of the commercial product foods, microwavable, prepared foods already in a box, those kinds of things have become more of what our communities use today. They don't go out, and a lot of families are not out hunting and fishing and gathering for their food anymore. So that's a significant change in what our traditional practices of food sovereignty have been.
Yeah, I remember my mom telling me about you guys had like chickens. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, chickens, pigs, ducks. Grandpa and your uncles always hunted, so we always had a deer, deer meat in the freezer. Fish, we always had fish in the freezer. Wild rice, we always had a big sack of wild rice, in addition to the commodity foods. And Grandma always had a garden. As far as I can remember, she had a garden from, growing up, and it was actually 2 garden spots that she had. She had one where she did all the root vegetables, and then another where she did all the corn and the beans and squash, cucumbers, those like hill products or hill plants, where she had to put them in beds. She had those in a separate space. And one was below the hill here along the kind of like the road, but not that far out, just like at the edge of her yard. And then the other one was on the south side of the house along the tree line. And that was where all the root vegetables were. And, we all had to help and be responsible for, for maintaining the garden, pulling weeds, making sure that it was watered, and that there were, we had to harvest with her, and clean them and take care of all of that. But yeah, she always, in the winter time, we would fish down on the lake and get, crappies for the winter time when we ran out of northern and whitefish and walleye that was in the refrigerator from fishing in the summertime. It seemed like it was tough, but it was, I think, healthier for us, to have all of those foods, and then just having that memory of, of those foods on the table is something that, like our kids never experienced with us, as parents, to hunt and fish and gather. we did that once in a while, but it wasn't all the time. And your mom probably don't remember doing any of that stuff because we were pretty much not doing it, when she was that age. We weren't fishing every day or every year. I think the last time I remember fishing, I was probably 16, maybe.
I've been thinking about starting a garden or something, maybe next year when my yard's a little bit better.
Yeah, even if you started, like some, well, Brandon, your cousin Brandon, he does that garden project. And he would probably have someone that could help you get started with just like maybe like a salsa garden they talk about, that has tomatoes, green peppers, onions, just those 3 items. And you can do them like in pots. And you wouldn't have to have like a garden space, or you could do a small garden spot that, where you did just those 3 items. And that would be plenty, to take care of. It would be good for, your boys too, and your mom to get out there and start doing, gardening things. But I would, if you're, really interested, just check out the Gikendaasowin website at Oshki Majitara or 4D Development.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that because I don't know, doing this whole assignment and learning about like, I don't know, food sovereignty, like, I don't know, it's kind of interesting.
It is. And, one of the things that it was determined, quite a while ago, that most tribal communities are in areas considered to be food deserts. So meaning that there's limited food available, or if the food is available, there's limited skills with people and knowing how to hunt, fish, and gather, which has really happened. That's happened to our community. And with food sovereignty, it's bringing that all back, and for us to be making our own decisions about how our food is, hunted, fished, gathered, and then how it's stored and distributed to the community. And traditionally, everyone in the band would hunt together, fish together, gather together, and then all that food would be stored, and then each family would be allocated, a certain amount to make sure that everyone in their family was fed and that they survived through the winter. That was always the goal, of the community, to have enough stored, preserved and stored to share with everybody in the community, that nobody starved throughout the winter time. So it started in, of course, in January with starting to collect the fish from the winter time, and those small game in the winter time, like rabbits and beaver and turtle eggs, those kinds of things in the winter time. And then coming spring, with like I said, the maple sugar, and summertime, the nuts and the berries and all of the plants that grow throughout the summer, the wild onions, the potatoes, and dandelions, and on a lot of the foods too that were gathered are the medicines. And so the medicines were used in teas, for drinking, just to keep everybody healthy throughout the entire year. So a lot of cedar, swamp tea, carrot, ironwood, all of those were gathered and preserved and stored for, those winter months. The diet was pretty bland. Not a lot of.
Doesn't really sound bland. I don't know. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's not a pizza. Or it's not a microwave burger.
I know my son wouldn't have lasted.
I know, right? Well, that's the thing though, your palate becomes conditioned to whatever it is that you eat. So if they like to eat chips, then that's what they're gonna always want. If they like drinking pop, then that's what they're gonna always want. So it's just a matter of changing what you provide to them. And I always say that that the responsibility of what goes on your table is through the parents, the mom, dad, grandparents, auntie, uncle, whoever is preparing that. They're the ones responsible for what kids become conditioned to eat. Yeah. But there's a lot of good recipes out there for wild rice, for fish, deer meat. We just did a deer meat hash probably a couple weeks ago. That's really good. And, we put wild rice in it. We put sweet potatoes, the deer meat and onions. I think we might have even put some beans in there, some pinto beans, because they're softer. Yeah, just salt and pepper. It's pretty good. A couple of eggs on the side. Pretty tasty.
Yeah, so I had like 3 other questions, but I'm pretty sure you just like answered them all in what you all just said.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, ask me the questions and I'll see if I did.
Okay. How could we eat better?
Yeah, just by choices, going back to some of the traditional foods that we have access to, either through our families who have already, collected those things, or through the Red Lake Nation Foods. Our local grocery store now sells bison. And if you know someone who has venison, the Red Lake Fisheries has fish, and you can get perch, walleye, northern, whitefish. You can get almost probably 4 or 5 varieties of fish from the fishery. But yeah, just finding out where to access them and how it fits into your budget, but also looking at the berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, nuts, hazelnuts, walnuts, almonds. Those are all products that were part of our traditional diet. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, not necessarily the white potatoes, but sweet potatoes are healthier, especially if you're prone to diabetes. And limit the number of foods that you eat that are already pre-packaged and prepared. Like a lot of people say, those microwave burgers are terrible. Terrible for your diet.
Well, dang it.
I know
Okay.
it's a favorite and it's easy.
Yes, it is. Okay. So in what ways can we achieve eating better?
Again, choices, knowing what your choices are, including those high nutrition, low calorie dense foods. A lot of our diets in communities where we are in a food desert, a lot of products that are in stores are the high calorie, low nutrition products like chips and pop, candy, cookies, cakes, prepackaged meals, those are all available, pretty readily in most food stores on a reservation. But if you, start to look around the store, and if you go around the outside of the store, that's where the majority of your high nutrition, low calorie foods are stored, like your fruits and your vegetables, your meats, some dairy, frozen vegetables. Those are all those products, but everything that's like in the aisles in between, they're your prepackaged, ready to eat types of foods that, you want to ignore. You can use some of those products, but, really focus on the products that are on the outside that are fresh and frozen. Water, drink a lot of water. I mean, that really helps to take care of your digestive system and your skin, your hair. I mean, everything, and when you drink a lot of water, you'll notice that your skin is really soft.
Okay, the last question is, how do you think we can help our youth with bettering eating habits?
Just serving it, serving a fruit that, during the meal, put it into a recipe, have them help you cook, a recipe, maybe something that's similar to something that they like eating, like try a veggie pizza, instead of, and you could still put meat on it, but do a thinner crust, more vegetables, low calorie, low fat cheese, and maybe just a light, a meat, a ground meat, like a bison, a burger, turkey, ground turkey, put that in it, because sausage is really high in fat and cholesterol. Do chicken. I mean, you can put chicken on a pizza. There's a lot of really good recipes for that. Make sandwiches, soups, to introduce them to smoothies. I mean, smoothies, kids really like smoothies, and that can be a meal in itself, or it could be a side for any meal that you serve. And you can make smoothies with fruits and vegetables combined, or just one or the other. Mixed berries are usually a pretty good favorite for kids, with yogurt and, some kind of low cal sweetener, maple syrup, maple sugar. Those two are pretty low cal, and they're pretty healthy. Again, have them get involved with shopping, challenge them, pick out 3 fruits and vegetables that you like to, bring home for, our meal for a couple of days, or however long, you plan your menu for. And that's another thing, just planning your menu so that you aren't running to the grocery store every other day. Have a week-long recipe, recipes that you're gonna make for each meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, with snacks, healthy snacks. Popcorn is an indigenous food. So, getting popcorn, and not eating the whole bag, but, a couple of handfuls, for a snack. Pretzels are also another low cal snack, just finding things that are replacing what they do like to eat. But then again, not depriving them of, a treat or a snack once in a while, that's not really on your menu, that's not healthy for you, but just so that, they're not feeling deprived also. I think it all goes back to psychology also with, if you're eating because you're emotional about, something, whether you're happy, sad, anxious, a lot of times we use food as a comfort. And if we're using food as a comfort, then we're eating all the time, and we're eating things that are unhealthy for us. And it happens to everybody. None of us are exempt from emotional eating. You just have to learn how to manage it in a way that's healthy for you. Exercise, drink more water, see a therapist.
Okay, so that's all I have for the interview, but we were supposed to ask if you are okay with our interview being a part of a podcast for the college. If so, then I would have to get like a release form for you to sign. So I guess it's like totally up to you.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if it is part of a podcast. I like to, be able to share this kind of information with anybody who's willing to listen. I can come over, and get the release form from you and or fill it out right there too. When do you want me to do that?
I don't know. I'd have to email my teacher, and she would have to send it to me.
Okay.
So maybe
Yeah.
like Monday or Tuesday, probably.
Okay, just let me know. Just text me.
Okay.
All right. Meet you in
Okay.
Nauvoo. And I will stop recording. Right, we're done.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure to join us next week as we continue to hear from RLNC students and their podcast projects to be created in Dr. Wendy Greenberg's environmental science course, Miigwech. Achi Miigwech to the following for their efforts in the creation of this Red Lake Nation College Gikendaasowin podcast episode. Opening and closing music by Director of Equity, Cultural Education, and Archives, Floyd Buck Jourdain. Opening introduction, closing preview, and production by Innovation Center Coordinator Brandon Spears. Our host this episode, RLNC student Senora Beaulieu. Our guest speaker this episode, Red Lake Comprehensive Health Services Administrative Officer Susan Ninham. And the National Endowment for the Humanities for their generous support. Miigwech, and have a good day.